How's it going, super friends? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brad, the DC Universe Geek, for those of you who don't know. And guess who just got done reading DC's latest foray into their tales of the Dark Multiverse? That's right, me. I just got finished reading the Death of Superman story, which is actually their second tale. The first one was Nightfall, which was good. In my opinion, not as good as the second one, which is the one we're talking about now, the Death of Superman. This one really made me feel something, whereas the Batman one, it's a good story. I just kind of read it like I would have read an old school Elseworlds tale. Like, it was like, oh, okay, it's fine, but, you know, the Death of Superman, the retelling, is absolutely fantastic, and I loved it on so many levels. For one, the artwork was absolutely fantastic. Every single page was illustrated, inked, and colored amazingly. All of the artwork in this book looks really, really good, and rightly so, because the story that accompanies it is equally as good. Now, the story itself starts off as your basic original Death of Superman story, where Superman and Doomsday are slugging it out on the street, and with that one last fateful punch, they both fall to the ground, with Superman dead in Lois's arms, which is on par and equal with the original story. Where things went wrong in this Dark Multiverse is this is not a tale, not really, about the resurrection of the Man of Steel, about the rebirth of hope in the DC Universe. No. This story is actually the tale of what happens when you have a heartbroken and grieving Lois Lane, who is granted the powers of the Man of Steel. What happens then when a vengeful widow has the powers of Superman? Let's find out. So basically, what happens is she's laying there, she's holding Superman in her arms, just like the original story. Superman dies, and it's at that moment that the rest of the heroes all kind of miraculously show up. Whoa, what happened? What we missed? What's going on here? And you have the Flash, the Green Lantern, Batman, Wonder Woman, and instead of being happy to see them, she's angry. She's angry. She's like, where were you when this was happening? He died alone in the street, and where were you? What were you doing? Of course she's angry. She feels like they failed him. And I guess in a way, if this was reality, I mean, yeah, they would have failed Superman. The League, who was supposed to always be there for each other, they've got the communicators. Where were they? I mean, this was a time in comic book history where the Justice League that we know and love was not the Justice League. They had a much different lineup, and they arranged the whole thing so that certain characters were off-world, and certain characters were dealing with other things, and they just couldn't be there. They had to really meticulously arrange the DC Universe at large to make it so that Superman would be by himself, fist to fist, with this monster. That it really would be toe-to-toe, him being the only thing standing between destruction and life. But Lois didn't see it that way. Lois was just upset, and her anger only begins to grow as she can't go to the funeral and be part of the procession, but the heroes get to carry the casket, and even though they weren't there when he died, of course they're right there up in front when it's time to carry his casket down the street to his final resting place underneath that big gold Superman statue. She's angry at the fact that Mom, Pa Kent, who loved him just as much as Lois, can't be at the funeral either. They had to watch it on the television. She's angry at the fact that there are empty speeches being made, most of all by Lex Luthor right there on the pulpit, his biggest, most mortal enemy, the one who hated him the most because Superman wouldn't bow the knee and become another indentured servant of Lex Luthor. She's angry at all these things. She feels like the world has failed Superman, and she's just going through the motions as this grieving widow. She's visiting Ma Kent, and Pa Kent has a heart attack, just like he does in the comics. He has that heart attack, the one that, if you remember, actually he meets Superman in the spirit world and, you know, helps him fight for his life and sends him back to Earth. It wasn't just the birth of the regeneration matrix that saved him. It was also his father, essentially, that saved him as well, on a completely different plane of existence, while Superman is going towards the light or whatever. I can't quite remember. It was the white bag that was the accompanying rebirth issue to the black bag, which was the death issue. Finally, she ends up at the Fortress of Solitude with Superman's tattered cape, which is rightly called in the story his blanket, which is exactly what it was at that point in Superman history. His cape was his baby blanket, the only thing that he got sent with in that rocket. She goes back there with his tattered cape, and the plan is to leave it there and close up and say goodbye to the Fortress of Solitude when, boom, in comes the Eradicator, claiming that he took Superman's body, just like in the original story during the reign of Superman, takes his body, sticks it in the regeneration matrix, but he's like, oh, it didn't work, and he's not resurrecting. What are we going to do? And Krypton can't die like this. And so that's when Lois says, hey, give me the power. I'll take the power. And the Eradicator's like, no, you're not Kryptonian. Your physiology can't handle it. He's like, I know the risks. Just give it to me, okay? Just give it to me. And so they merge. There's a huge explosion. The Fortress of Solitude is just destroyed, and Lois rockets out of the fortress, flying at super speed, carrying the tattered baby cape, which she then ties around her neck. She's floating above the earth, and then she decides she's going to carry on Superman's mission in that moment. But she can hear, and she can see everything that Superman could, and she's perplexed. Like, why didn't you do more? Why didn't you do more to save people, to help people? You could have. You had all this power, so why did you do the stuff that you did? So she begins her actions trying to carry on Superman's legacy, trying to even do more than he did, trying to do it better than him. Not because she thinks she's better than him, but because she just can't understand. She cannot understand why Superman didn't do more. And the answer to that is actually in the end of the book, so we'll get there. So she begins by, she's dethroning dictators, and she's ending starvation in places, and she's bringing food to places where the dictators were seeing that their people lived in poverty. She's stopping crime bosses. She's ending organizations, evil organizations. She's ending Cadmus. She's ending the League of Assassins. She's killing supervillains, incinerating them left, right, and center. This because at first she was only actually stopping dictators, and she was helping people on more of a Superman level. Superman didn't go in and stop wars, but she was trying to do basically what Superman would do, but more, but to the extreme. Until eventually she's floating outside of Lex Luthor's window, outside of his penthouse apartment, which is a classic Superman thing as well. And Lex Luthor and her have this exchange back and forth, and Lex Luthor does the thing that he, tries on her, the thing that he always did to Superman. He's like, well, I'm telling you my plan, but you can't prove it, so there you go. Even though technically Superman could have hid a tape recorder in the pocket of his cape. Here nor there, he tries to pull one of those on Lois, and she's having none of it. And she gets sick of it. She grabs him by the neck and flies up into outer space. And as she's crossing through the Earth's atmosphere, the heat just burns Luthor to a crisp. And that's when she realizes, I don't feel bad about this. I feel like I got more work to do. And that's when she goes and she starts just murdering the Earth's supervillains. Ra's al Ghul, goodbye. The Joker, see you later. She takes them all out. She's like, the heroes never did this, so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it. And she just takes them all out. A part of me kind of goes, I would never do that, but I can see where she's coming with this, because she has this conflict with the Batman just after incinerating the Joker. She just heat vision incinerates the Joker to nothing but burning orange ash. And the Batman is, it's the Batman. Like, what have you done? It's actually kind of reminiscent of the story where Superman kills the Joker in the Injustice universe, right? What have you done? You got lines you don't cross. But Lois is having none of it, because remember, she's not Superman. She's Lois Lane, who is the grieving widow of the man that she loved, who was trying to save the world. And she feels now like he wasn't doing an adequate job, that he could have been doing more. And so her and Batman kind of get into a bit of a scuff up, and she just incinerates him too, because Batman's like, I'm not going to stop. I'm Batman. I don't stop. And so she's like, yeah, you're right. And so she just, boom, she does the same thing to Batman that she does to Joker. Lois Lane means business. Shortly after that, that's when Superboy and Steel pop onto the scene. So we're getting further along in the Reign of Superman story. And she's not worried about them. She refers to Superboy as the clone and to Steel as the zealot. So they're not really on her radar as someone that she needs to deal with. She kind of feels like they're just neither here nor there by the looks of it. The one that she's going after is the Cyborg Superman, who is the one who is trying to take Superman's name. And she's like, I ain't having any of that. I'm going to go deal with that guy. So she goes over. And then if you remember in the original Reign of Superman story, the Cyborg Superman tries to convince her that he is Superman, and he almost convinces her. He's very, very convincing with the things that he says, but in this story, Lois ain't having none of it. She sees right through it. She knows, obviously, that it's not him, so what does she decide to do? She gets into a battle with him. While she's fighting him, the Cyborg Superman has all these mechanical arms and bits and tentacles and stuff, and he's like, I'm more powerful than Superman, and he's grabbing onto her, and he's got her by the tentacly things. And that's when Superboy and Steel show up to help her battle the Cyborg Superman. And Steel is trying to free Lois from the grip of the Cyborg Superman, his tentacles. And Superboy, in the meantime, is going head-on by himself after the Cyborg Superman. And he just gets incinerated. He gets burned to a crisp. After that, Steel, who is in a steel suit, just gets crunched on the inside. No amount of muscle and how buff you are inside that suit is going to stop the Cyborg Superman from controlling that steel almost in a way that Magneto did, and just crushes him on the inside, crushes all of his bones, just every bone in his body, and obviously kills him. I mean, when your skull is broken, you're dead, right? When everything is broken, you're dead. So it's safe to assume that the Cyborg Superman in one fell swoop kills Superboy and kills Steel. Well, what does she do? She continues the battle with him. She must stop him. And they fight for a long, long time. And she's like, I lost track of how many people died and exactly what was happening, but I had to stop him. That's all I knew. So she's now engaged in this great big epic battle. But then onto the scene walks the black suit Superman in his the regeneration suit. Superman with the mullet is right there. And she notices him and she's like, wow, for the first time, I wish that he wasn't here. He's here. He's weak than I've ever seen, but that's him. And she stops for a second, and there's a moment where they get a breather, and Superman is talking to her, and she knows that it's him, but that moment doesn't last that long. The joy that they get to see each other again doesn't last long, because Superman looks around and realizes that the people are afraid of her. They fear her. And that's a big deal. He's like, why are they afraid of you? And in that moment, the Cyborg Superman picks up this big cannon with a kryptonite and just totally blasts Superman and kills him. And so, Lois destroys the Eradicator, just smashes him into bits, and then goes over and is holding Superman in her arms again, just like she did the first time on the street, surrounded in rubble, only this time Superman has a look of fear in his eyes. Because Lois has became the one thing that Superman didn't want to become. And that's fear. He didn't want the people to fear him. Which is why he did only what he did. Why he maintained the family life, while he didn't get rid of dictators and despots and stop every war and incinerate every bad guy, is because he didn't want anyone to fear him. And Lois became the opposite of that. And I think, to me, this story was so poignant. It was so good. What would a heartbroken, vengeful, grieving widower do with Superman's powers, especially being the grieving widow of Superman? What would she do? How would she try to honor his memory? Right? Good story. It was a good story. If you can get your hands on it, read a copy of this. Honestly, I highly suggest it. Grab it, read it online. If you're subscribed to DC Universe, read it on DC Universe. Go to your local comic shop, go to Amazon, anything. Read this story because it was absolutely fan-frickin-tastic. Anyway, guys, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, found it insightful, useful, a reasonable waste of time. I know my comic reviews can be really rambly and all over the place, but hey, I don't script these things. I speak from the heart. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. You want to see more of my DC content show up in your inbox. A lot of my hands, only some of my face. But I invite you today on behalf of the rest of the Super Friends to join the DC squad by hitting the subscribe button and dinging the bell. And with that, I will see you next time with the next one. Have an awesome day, Super Friends, and take care.